welcome to our fourth season of the podcast, and this is another season of Lessons from a Birth and Baby Business Owner. It's a show where we'll be speaking to those who are in or who have been in the birth and baby world to ask them the questions that you would like to know the answer to on how they got to where they are in business right now. Hello, my name is Anna. I am one half of Baba Business, the Birth and Baby Business Academy.
My name is Liz Stamford. I'm the other half of Baba Business, the community membership for birth and baby business owners. And today we have the pleasure of talking to the lovely Awena. Awena is an occupational therapist turned business strategist, helping coaches, practitioners and service providers build sustainable burnout-free businesses through her online course, Successful Signature Programs. She also trains birth and baby specialists to support mothers during early matrescence and beyond as Soul-Full MAMA Facilitators through her CPD-accredited Maternal Wellbeing Practitioner program. Wow, sounds really, really good. And I was thinking, goodness me, I could do with that online course for a burnout-free business, please. Thank you. Where's the best place to start? I think it's really for you to tell us, why did you start your business, Awena?
Hi. I'm so excited to be here, honestly, because I think what you guys are doing is really, really amazing and really needed. We need to support our people who are in businesses who are supporting mums, because it's such a big, big field, and it's a lot of energy and it's a lot of attention and it's a lot of love that goes into it. So I'm really thrilled to be here with you guys today. So thank you. Why did I start my business? So there's two reasons, really, because I kind of have two businesses, although they overlap and they interlink and ultimately they kind of weave into each other.
Yeah.
But the first one, which has now become the Soul-Full Mama, it sounded amazing when you were repeating it then. Actually, I was like, oh my God, that sounds so good. Check me out. So that came about. I was an occupational therapist for some years and loved what I was doing, but I knew that after I had a baby I didn't want to go back to work. So it's that kind of classic, I've had my baby, I don't want to go back to that 9 to 5, I don't want to be restricted by holiday term dates, caps with what I can earn in my kind of financial realms. And so I started to explore what business was all about and different types of businesses. But the thing that came across the most was when I came across the term matrescence, which so many people have never heard of.
And I had to ask you, I had to check with you how you pronounce it before we started the podcast. So yes, it's definitely not a word that trips off the tongue.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Lots of people kind of go matrescence, or I mean, I guess you could pronounce it like that if you wanted to. I don't know, but I've only known it to be matrescence because of the terminology. It's kind of similar to adolescence, so we've got the matrescence, which is like the maternal side of things. And I remember sat on the sofa with my mum, sort of coming out of quite severe postnatal depression, and that whole journey had really thrown me sideways. I was expecting to fall into motherhood in this really easy way. I was expecting to have this surge of hormones and this rush of love straight away. I was expecting to take to it. Had all these expectations because of what I'd been told, what the media had shown me. And when you grow up with TV shows like Friends, when someone has a baby and just cracks on with their life, you think, oh, that's what it is then. You have a baby and you just get on with what you're doing. So I had this huge experience of really falling into postnatal depression, overwhelm, anxiety. But then because I'm an occupational therapist, I actually kind of therapized, if that's a word, myself and took myself on this real big self-healing journey. So I started to integrate self-boundaries, I started to integrate mindfulness, I started to integrate meditation, gratitude practices, self-care, and I started to really talk about what was going on for me and what was happening internally so that I could seek the support that I needed. So it was the combination of actually falling down the rabbit hole with postnatal depression and then navigating my way out of that. And just at the point of me starting a millinery business, because I'm trained in upholstery, I'm trained in millinery, making fancy hats. I was just at the point of launching a website, doing that. And this penny just dropped. And I remember sat there thinking, what am I doing? This term matrescence, this is a whole thing. This is women becoming mothers who are transitioning through these phenomenal hormonal, energetic, emotional, spiritual shifts. Why is no one talking about this? Why has no one on my journey into motherhood anywhere mentioned this to me before? And so I started to put the pieces of the puzzle together, and I started to think, I'm an occupational therapist, right? I used to run group programs. I used to train people. I used to help people. I used to support people. And so why don't I bring all those skills together, as well as the personal knowledge that an experience that I've had with going under and coming back up again, and bring out a program that I can then help other mums with. And so from that point, everything just went boof, because it just kind of snowballed. And within what felt like minutes, I'd created a 6-week program, because I used to do that as an occupational therapist. So I kind of had this group program experience anyway.
Wow.
Yeah. And then that was the beginning part of the CPD program, because that group program eventually turned into a CPD training program, which enables me to now train other healthcare professionals, coaches, practitioners who currently or want to work with mums in using a methodology that I know works, because I've tested it not just on myself, but with hundreds of mums who have experienced the different types of content that I use in that program.
Yeah.
So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
That's amazing though. What a journey, and what an amazing thing to come from your experience of postnatal depression as well. I think, that's really kind of probably very positive for people to hear who might be experiencing postnatal depression now or coming out of it. And I had postnatal depression as well with after my second child, and that experience, I feel, really helped to shape who I am now. In the moment, you don't want to be in it, you don't want to experience it. I don't want to go back there, but I do look back on it with a feeling of that actually shaped me into the business owner that I am right now. So I can have some gratitude for that. So I can see how your passion for this program came from your own kind of depths of despair, if you like. It's really hard. It's a really hard thing to navigate postnatal depression. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it's so hard, and you're absolutely right. When you're in it, you don't want to be there. You're so desperate to find a way that means that you can sort of see the light again. And because you're battling with these really deep, profound thoughts and feelings of guilt, what's wrong with me? Why don't I feel happy? I'm supposed to feel happy and I don't feel happy. Why can't I manage this? You're riddled with guilt, shame, all of it all at once. It's like this really huge soup that you kind of need to navigate out of, and there just isn't a lot of support that's easily accessible when you're going through the systems. There's no sort of pack that you get given after you've had a baby with any explanations of the transition that you're going through, and different resources to help you on that very psychological and deep emotional level. There's lots of support, as in, go here to learn about lactating, go here to learn about how to change a nappy, go here to, things like that, which is great. We need all that. We need all that. But what I found at the time that was lacking, and things may have changed, I haven't had a baby for 8 years, so things may well have changed quite a lot, I don't know. But from what I'm hearing from mums on the ground and other practitioners at the moment, is that because of what's happened out there in the world, kind of economically, politically, things like that, is that there is even less support now generally offered through the traditional services.
Yeah, definitely. I think one thing that's maybe changed since you or I experienced postnatal depression, as mine is 13 years ago, so it's quite some time ago, but I think it's easier to talk about it. So it's easier. People are more open to having those conversations. Whereas I remember being very oh no, I don't want anybody to know. What will they think of me? It was going to damage my character in some way. That was just the way that it was portrayed to me. But like I said, reflectively now, it had a huge impact on my business and just how I kind of like put myself forward in the world from that point. It was kind of I'm out of the depths of despair. So now I'm going to just like go for it. Like I've never gone for it before. And I do think that really helped propel me forward. And it sounds like it also helped you as well. Something that I picked up on as well, which is really common, is you were saying after you'd had your baby, you didn't want to go back to work. So that's something that we hear all the time, Anna, isn't it? When we're talking to people who are looking to go into the birth of baby world, or who are in the birth of baby world and then maybe like their business is a side hustle. And it's this idea of just wanting more flexibility, wanting more time with our families and kind of getting off this 9 to 5 treadmill, really.
Yeah, that's such a huge thing. That's something that I see quite a lot.
Yeah, I think, especially, I don't know if you were working for the NHS before, Awena, but the NHS, like considering it's the biggest employer in Europe, and it's also, employs predominantly women, it's like the most unflexible system to work in.
Yeah.
And because there's staff shortages, it impacts everybody. My old team, when I just left, but because when I had my second child, I had my first two quite close together, and they couldn't my salary would just cover their childcare. So I was like, yeah, I love my job, but not quite that much. So I gave up. But I remember them not long after that, they were like, yeah, so because just for fairness for everybody, we're going to stop anyone taking annual leave in the school holidays. Like, it doesn't make any sense, you know what I mean? Because people are getting up, and I know that's just like one team, and I know things are getting better. I'm a big fan of the Flex Appeal campaign, with Anna Whitehouse and stuff, and I do know there's some incredible NHS teams out there doing incredible things. But I think it's but it could be the NHS, it could be wherever you work. Like the flexibility around childcare is slowly improving, but there's still some really depressing stuff out there. But also just the fact that we were talking about this the other day, weren't we, Liz, that when you've had your baby and you don't really want to leave them, you're a different person as well. Like, and when you go back into the workplace as a mother, you're not the same. You're not. You're not as invested in your job, no matter how much you love it, because it's always going to be your child or kids to think about as well. Suddenly your job isn't as important as it used to be to you. And yeah, there's a lot of jobs. I know people who gave up their entire careers, like people who lived in, who worked in the casting industry, or the theatre industry in London. And they lived, an hour out, and then suddenly they had a baby, and they're like, well, I can't do that job anymore because it requires me to be available 24 hours a day, or I get home at 2 a.m. And, they hadn't even, I think it's such a shock because they hadn't even considered before they had their baby that their life, like you said, Awena, like you don't consider that your life is going to change until you're in it. And then suddenly it's like, and so it's really good, isn't it? It's really exciting to find something that, that lights you up and that fits both with being a mum, but also is something that you're really passionate about and you're helping others and all of those things. And I think we're really lucky. We're all really lucky to have found that. So tell me a little bit about that transition sort of into the world of work, from working for somebody else. And also I'm really interested in sort of what made you think about moving into the sort of strategy, coaching, support side of it as well.
So it kind of took its own organic, natural path, sort of from when I kind of started. So when I first started, I didn't know anything about business at all because I was an occupational therapist. They don't teach you how to run a business. Obviously, it's not a business qualification. It's very much focused on learning the skill and going down a certain pathway. And so I kind of felt like I was going at it like hell for leather, but not knowing where to go or what direction to necessarily go in. And I remember at the beginning part, I had this idea for something that I wanted to do. I had this idea that I wanted to build a course, and I wanted to support people on more of like a mass level. Yeah. And at the time, I then started to think about, I probably could do like a business coach, or I didn't even know that existed. I remember putting a post out in a group saying, is there such a thing as a business coach? Because I need some support. And this was like...
Everyone was like, yes.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah, it was insane. It was in a big group of like, I don't know, 7,000 people or something. And I was so new. I didn't know.
Yeah.
And, but then I did come across somebody, and it was one of the first people that I worked with. And unfortunately, we weren't really a good match. And I did get kind of very persuaded to go down a certain road with my work.
Oh,
And
yeah.
not to trust my gut instincts, really, which was I wanted to create a course that I could have out that was very, very low cost, that mums could access. At that point, it was directly from me to the mum, that mums could access, and they could learn. And I then got kind of persuaded, if you like, and dazzled by the earning 6 figures in 6 weeks kind of spiel that honestly isn't around as much these days, thank God. But like 6 years ago, it was rife.
Oh, rife, yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
Like literally, do you remember?
Yeah.
Just like insane, wasn't it? Just like bamboozled by, these quick wins and this like a phenomenal amount of money. And so as someone who is working at home with their kid, obviously you're like, oh my God, that sounds amazing. Okay, well, it looks really easy. Everyone's telling me it's really easy. So I kind of got, no, coerced isn't the right word, but like little gently guided into, instead of having a course that was like 37 quid or 97 quid, that was honestly very accessible financially to my personal people, I was kind of persuaded to put my prices up instantly to £3,500 for a 6-week course on one-to-one, which, isn't going to work with mums who are staying at home, because they don't really have £3,500 hanging out the house like normally.
Yeah.
So,
and were you told it was your limiting beliefs if you didn't want to do?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Like, no, it's the industry. Like,
it's the industry.
You do have to. There is limiting beliefs, obviously, and they do hold us back. But then there is knowing your audience and who you want to work with.
Yeah, it's knowing who your people are, because there are definitely people out there that will buy a £3,000 course and only want to buy a course for that price,
Yeah,
totally.
But it's about working out, are those my people, and are those the people that I want to help? That's the key. Factor, isn't it?
And it's that exact thing. It's that balance of going, because £3,500 isn't a lot of money to some people. It really, really isn't at all. And I've been very happy to spend above and beyond that on certain things that I've wanted, and but my clientele was the stay-at-home mums, and I wanted to support those mums who hadn't had the traditional support to access some of the tools that I had at my disposal, so that I could help them in some way. So it is, I think that's really interesting, because it is about kind of navigating that balance, isn't it? Of, is this a limiting belief? Is this actually true? Or but who are my actual audience? And then pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and doing things that are a bit scary. It's all those things all at once. So I think when you're sort of navigating business at first, there's so much to think about and to kind of look at. But I believe that wasn't for my people at the time. And actually I probably would have got a lot further a lot quicker had I trusted my instincts and gone for what I thought was best for my people and built upon that. Because when you're going out there for the first time and you're kind of exposing yourself in this new business realm, there's an energetic capacity that we have, and how much we can actually energetically hold before our nervous system's going to fight and flight, before our nervous system's going to fear and retraction. And I'm honestly a big believer in actually taking things one stage at a time and building them up, so that each layer that you do, your nervous system can hold the next level of expansion, and because you've had the courage to take that small bit of action, that's where the confidence comes in, because you're doing the do. And you're building and building and building up. And that is also another way to avoid burnout, and also another way to build a more sustainable business. So, I found that coming from kind of like a social background into business world is probably one of the biggest learning curves I've ever had in my life. Honestly.
It's massive, isn't it? We talk about this a lot. Yeah, we talk about it a lot with our people, don't we? Because a lot of them come from the volunteer background, or they come from the NHS, and they struggle with, for example, charging and things. But you know, we can't sit there and say, oh, you know, you've just got money blocks and you've just got, you know what I mean? Just, you know, you can just, you know, get rid of those. We'll help you get rid of those thought process and thought patterns, because it's like, it isn't that simple. And I was using the analogy about when I went skydiving and I jumped out of a plane for the first time, and I was like, it was the most terrifying thing. And the guy actually pushed me off out the plane in the end. And I used to think that building a business had to be like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've got to just take this massive risk and leap. And you're so right. Like, that is one way to do business. And for some people, it works out brilliantly. But it is not good for our nervous systems. And it is not the only way to do it. And I'll argue it's not. This is to have that belief that every time you have a new success in your business, or every time you're going to step up in your business or grow your business, you have to have that sort of experience that's sort of terrifying and massive, is just simply not true. So I'm really with you on that. Definitely learn those lessons myself as well, that, you know, this sort of baby steps, building things, checking them out, trying stuff. Oh, it didn't work, let's try something else. And just kind of, but doing it in a way that is kind to yourself, compassionate, and can then feel sustainable and smart is such a better way to do it. I think many of us have learned that lesson over the years, haven't we, Liz? So that's a good way to do it.
Definitely. And I was, as you were talking about that experience with the coach, I was sort of wondering, what advice would you give people that are, you know, like you were at that point where you've got a great idea and they want to bring it to life. They've just got no clue where to start. How would you recommend people go around choosing a coach to work with them if that's the route that they want to go down? Because it's hard, isn't it? Especially if you're just entering this kind of world. Like, I remember, before I even knew that, like, business, like yourself, like that business coaches or the online world existed, once you come into it, you're like, what is this? There's so much going on here. So what advice would you give people about choosing someone to work with?
I would say go for somebody who's already done what you want to do. So taking the path that you actually really want to take. So the second coach that I worked with was absolutely amazing, and she really, really helped me. And actually, it's somebody that lots of other people know as well. And the second coach I worked with, I chose carefully, and it's because she knew how to build the business that I was wanting to build. So that worked really, really well. And I learned a lot, and I had some good success with that. So that was a really interesting, because I'd worked with someone who was a mentor. She'd not actually done what I wanted to do, but I honestly felt a bit like bamboozled. I didn't know like whether to go with her or not. So I just kind of went for it, but it definitely wasn't the right thing. So my advice would be to, you know, speak to a few different people. You can say no to people, and that's okay. You can have a conversation with someone, and they can look like this amazing coach, and you might really like them, and you might think, well, they're really amazing, but actually I prefer to go with somebody else. And it's okay to say I've chosen a different direction. And I think that's the other thing, is when we're quite fresh and new in business, I certainly was feeling like, oh, well, I've had a conversation, so I owe them something. So because they've given me their half an hour's worth of time, I should probably go with them now, because they, you know, and it was so much was wrapped into that, probably too much for this call, but I would say have a few conversations with, you know, a few different people, and go for somebody who knows your industry, has either had personal experience directly themselves in doing what you want to do, or has coached many other people in the same industry, so that they know that. Because honestly, you know, the mum industry is different to the business industry. I think when you're marketing towards somebody in business, you can they're much more likely to have a quick yes, because it's about a return on investment. So if you're going to buy a course that goes, I'm going to help you to make more money, you're going, cool, well, their processes work, so if I give them $5,000 and their process is going to bring me $15,000, well, that's cool, you know. But if you're in an industry that's sort of gentle support for very vulnerable people feeling vulnerable, it's a totally different approach to how you offer your services, how you provide your work, how you kind of approach your whole business. I think I've gone on a bit of a sidetrack there, but if you're going to basically go and ask someone to work with you, or invite someone to work with you, or go and work with anybody, then definitely work with people who know your business industry. can relate to that.
I totally agree. I've had experiences in the past with coaches who don't understand the nuances of working within the birth and baby world, and exactly like the vulnerability of the people that we work with at the stage of their lives, and that I'm not afraid to say I run my business because I want to earn money. I'm not afraid of the money side of things, but I'm also in my business because I want to make an impact on these people's lives. I want to change the world in some way, and that's much more heart connected than what's your top line, what's your profit, what's your revenue, what you're going to charge, all of that comes into it, but it's not like it's not always the most important thing all the time, so I totally get that. And some coaches just aren't, they're just not in that headspace, and it can be really, really conflicting, definitely. So what would you have done differently, the coach thing aside, maybe, since starting your business? Is there anything when you look back on it and you go, if I had known this at the beginning, it would have, things would have been easier? Or
so much. But first of all, what I would have done is started to build my audience on my email list before even thinking about creating a product or service, so that you can start to really connect with people, gather your market research, lean into and really listen to what is people are wanting. So what are people really searching for? What are people really needing? And what are people ready to invest in? Because like you just said, we're a business, so we all want to make money. I'm not shy. I tell people all the time that I want to be, on 200k months. Like, that's great. That's what I want to do. But I also lead from my business from the heart. But to start from the very beginning, I would focus on the audience growth, focus on the email listing, get really familiar with creating content in a safe way so that your energetic nervous system is going, okay, I'm safe to do this. And then when you're ready to package up something that is a service or a product, you already know who you're marketing to, what language they're using, what they're responding well to, and you've built up people who are ready to buy and invest in you, so that when you do come to launch, your launches are much more likely to be much bigger and much more successful, because you've got ready to buy people who are waiting for you, literally waiting for you to bring something out. So for example, and start small. So for example, if you were to have you were to start, say, a Facebook group that was for mindfulness in motherhood, for example, being really specific on what it is that you're offering, bringing people into that free Facebook group, joining people onto a newsletter that's one newsletter a week. Go slow, just one newsletter a week, which is perhaps like little tips or something like that, or relevant content that's going to be informational but really useful and helpful. And quite a lot of the reports that I had back when I had one of my groups was that the mums loved reading blogs because they could breastfeed and then read a blog. So find one outlet that is responsive to your people. So if it's a blog or if it's a YouTube channel, stick to one thing. Don't try and do a podcast, a YouTube channel, a blog, and sort your SEO out, do, social media, blah, blah, blah. Like, just choose like one outlet to do. And I would ideally choose something that's SEOable and keyword rich. So doing something like a Pinterest or a YouTube or a podcast, for example, because you can actually use keywords in there as well. And then use one social media channel, instead of trying to be on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook, on everything, and then tweaking everything for the algorithms. And I mean, it's too much, so start real simple, build up your audience, see what they want and what they need, create something from there, and then launch.
I love that. I love how you keep like the nervous system in mind the whole of the way. It's like you're saying it and you're thinking, oh no, they're going to start panicking. So you're like, no, it's safe. Make sure it's safe. I love that. I think that's that approach right from the beginning when people are starting out. It could just pave the way to a healthy relationship with your business, with your time, and kind of really prevent overwhelm as well. So that's a
Yeah,
fantastic.
totally. And do you know what? I've been to burnout as well. I got really ill last year, and the start of that was through burnout because I'd been doing a lot for a long time. So I'd started to streamline my business down because I realized I was burning out. So I cut everything out except for one thing. It was one group program, and it was something that I was absolutely obsessed with, and it was something that was working really well, and it was people responded to really well. So it was that perfect triage.
Yeah.
And just at the point of that turning into an evergreen group program, I'd not simplified soon enough. And then I hit a really bad burnout, and then I got glandular fever, and then I was out of work for like months and months and months, and it really affected everything. It affected my income, it affected my confidence, it affected my ability to think, speak, create, hold space. Couldn't do any of it.
Yeah.
And so that is something that I would really want to recommend to people, is when they're starting their businesses, is really start from that burnout free approach, and please try not to get too bedazzled by all the quick wins, because they can work. But if you want a sustainable business and you want to have something that's got strong foundations, that can support you when you're ill, that can support you if you want to take a break, that means that you can take those steps up towards getting bigger and bigger and bigger, start off from a place of sustainability, because you're better off getting there 3 years down the line and then having a wonderful future ahead of you than getting there a year down the line and burning out quickly and then you not being able to recover from that very well.
I absolutely love that. I think that is such a wonderful piece of advice, and not something that we hear that often, and definitely something that I think Anna and I should definitely share your thoughts on that. Absolutely. So I think that's a perfect place to end the podcast conversation. So, Awena, do you want to tell us where people can find you, follow you, learn more about you?
Yeah, sure. So at the moment, you can come and find me on my Mama Rocks business channels, which is, well, you can find it on the website. It's at www.mamarocksbusiness.com, and then you'll find me that on Instagram as well. And also, if you just type in Awena, there's not very many of us. So if you come on Facebook or Instagram and you find Awena Business Strategist, Awena Soul-Full Mama, you'll find me there. So I've got two businesses, and one is kind of parked at the moment whilst I'm focusing on the other one. So it's the Mama Rocks business one at the moment, but if you get into my world, you'll start to see all the other things that I'm doing, and yeah, it'd be so lovely to connect and try and, support people ongoing and offer support, and hopefully it helps.
Brilliant.
Thanks, Awena. It's been great having you here, and we'll put all of that in the show notes as well. And I just want to thank everybody for listening or watching. Thank you for being here. If you liked this episode, then do leave us a comment below, or a review is always nice. Subscribe on YouTube, all the things. Come and have a chat with us about it on Instagram. And we will see you all next week. Thanks again, Awena.
Thank you so much. Take care.